Hey, True Believers, England Teen here. I want to do an article I found that talks about how some or why some comic book creators may be bullies to their readers. And this is from Bill Willingham. I found his, what is that, Substack? And I just looked over a few things, found it kind of fascinating. And this was what drove me to it, as a matter of fact. He's got some other articles, and they're pretty good, and I do recommend them there. So he goes, why are some comic pros so damn abrasive? And this is basically him, and as he says, in which I offer a theory, not a theory. Let me try that again. In which I offer a theory to account for not really recent phenomena. And he's right. You actually heard stories in the 80s about some creators who were not very kind to readers who came up, even no matter the age. Some of them just didn't have the patience to deal with even kids. But he goes over this, and let me get started on this, and because there's a little bit to it. But this is Bill Willingham, the creator of Fables. I highly recommend that book to those of you who have not checked that out. I think you're doing yourself a disservice. Make sure that you read this. It is quite awesome-nating. Let me share this out here and we'll get going. All righty, here you go. So it goes on, why are some comic pros so damn abrasive? So there are some comic professionals, Bill Williams says, who are cranky, abrasive, and downright insulting to their own fans. And lately they've been standing out, making even more than usual spectacle of themselves. Many articles in the comic press and their cousins in the YouTube video game have documented the trend in the past few days. And there is a picture, by the way, and the only picture in here is of Dan Slott. So my guess is that Bill had found out what happened to Jimmy Quirks. Jimmy Quirks came onto this channel, and he talked about what Dan Slott said. Obviously, it's making rounds, and not even all of the comic book creators are on Dan's side on this one. So he says, I have a theory backed up by only anecdotal evidence, mind you, as to why this is happening and why it seems to be happening so much more in the recent days, months, and years. Now, once again, it's only anecdotal, so take this with a grain of salt. I've been in the business for more than 40 years, enough to have some perspective, and there have been cranky comic pros that whole time, and I don't intend to name too many, because it isn't my intention here to take them to task, either collectively or as individuals. It's my intention to offer an insider's perspective on one of the possible reasons this may be. You know, once again, I've got to point out the fact that it does seem like he's taking an anti-stance to this, and it absolutely should be. When you're working at Disney, they teach you this thing, and it's very simple. You're going to have 1,000 people come up to you and ask, where's the bathroom? But each person, that's their first and only time. That's all. So you might be going, oh, another question. It's the same question over and over, but it's not the same person asking it. And so you learn to kind of suffer the slings and arrows a little bit. All right. So he says it's the law of fecal gravity. Putting more earthy way, poop rolls downhill. Not sure I like this because he's putting the comic book creator above the comic book reader, and you know where I think that actually stands. Since the dawn of modern comic books, the publishers and their editors' representatives have made it their business to keep freelancers under their thumb, to keep us in our place, which is the state of cringingly subservient to them. The examples are legion, but let me offer one or two well-known ones to support my claim. And he says the highly truncated Jim Shooter story. As he often tells the tale, Jim Shooter got his start writing comics for DC way back in 1965 at the tender age of 13. Yes, 13. Or perhaps he was 14 when he finally started selling his scripts to DC editor Julius Schwartz and Murray Blotnoff. He primarily wrote the Legion of Superheroes ongoing series, and according to Shooter, those two editors took full advantage of his young age to treat him like crap. In fact, the story goes that they would brag around the DC offices how they completely they have this kid under their heels, and he can't do a thing about it because he's so young. All right, and then he chapters this more thrilling tales of office terror. Frankly, I'd never heard the story about him being abused by Julius Schwartz and such. Not abused like beaten, but, you know. Okay. More thrilling tales of office terror. There are reputable tales of how Stan Lee used to make his artists grovel and bow as a joke, of course. Seriously, he was just busting their chops as men do when Stan would hand out paychecks on pay. Yeah, I've actually heard about that too. From my own experiences during the days I would often visit the Marvel offices looking to break into that August House of Ideas, I was seriously told by one editor, the reason I know you're not ready to work for Marvel is if you were ready, you'd already be working here. That truism wasn't exclusive to me. By the time I'd heard it said directly to me, I'd heard it often spoken as something akin to a company mantra. I can't read today. Then there was the time I was finally getting my break into drawing Marvel Comics after many false starts and almost assignments. I was handpicked by the writers of Wild Card. Well, I remember that miniseries. It's actually pretty good. It's based on, what's his name, the Game of Thrones writer? Yeah, good book, though. Good book. Shared World Prose series to draw Wild Card series in its coming soon Marvel Comics adaptation. I was living in Austin, Texas at the time, as were many of the Wild Card authors. I got all of one cover drawn by the time I received a phone call from a new editor, and it had quickly become something of a hot potato of assignment. I used to work at Universal in the Twister attraction. The managers and supervisors couldn't wait to get away from that because it wasn't something they could springboard from. So yeah, I get that. I would tell you the editor's name if I could remember it because he deserves to be called out by name, but I simply don't recall who he was. In any case, the fella called me out of the blue, having tracked me down to a local junior high school at which I was participating in their library book sale. He started the conversation like this. I paraphrase, but it's pretty accurate. Listen here, I'm the new editor on Wild Cards, and I want you to know from the beginning that I'm not going to take any shit from any damn arrogant freelancer who came out of the damn gaming and thinks he knows a damn thing. Let's get this straight right away. Having never spoken to this fellow before then, I told him, I remembered as politely said, but who knows? No thanks. I won't be spoken to like that from anyone. And that ended my run on Wild Cards. And for the chance of working at Marvel. Yeah, I would not take that either. I never have. I haven't from my father in a long time. And I mean, even before, as a young man in my 20s, I would often call even my dad out if he started yelling. Nobody likes to be yelled at, and you're not going to get anywhere because the argument no longer is about the topic. It's about how the argument is going. So he goes on to say, of course, there were editors who treated me well, and they no doubt outnumbered the terrors, but the bad ones stood out, and some of them still act like that. Yeah. In DC Comics, it's become obvious over time that unless you were the rare 300-pound gorilla, and you can guess who those are, who could dictate the terms to the editors, you fell into the camp of those the editors could keep under their thumbs. And I was never the 300-pound gorilla, but came close during the height of Fables. Alrighty, let's see. And he's like, I began to notice the real dicks in the company started treating me with a wee bit more differentiality. But so then anyway, is what he titles this next segment. As a general rule, we learn to act as we're taught, and the hallowed halls of comic book publishing were places rife with spoiled children in positions of authority, and the bullied often become bullies. It's a lesson taught to me in high school by one of my teachers, Mr. Longwell. On the last day of my freshman year, he said to the class, next year you'll be sophomores and not have to endure the hazing and abuse from... I never got that, by the way. If there's too many brothers and sisters around the world here in Florida, if the senior class went after you to try to paddle or anything like that, there would be fights. There would be serious freaking fights, especially from the freshmen that were getting their asses whipped. Next year, you'll be sophomores and not have to endure the hazing. But do you know who always dishes out the most hazing to freshmen? Sophomores getting revenge for how they were treated. Please keep that in mind and maybe considering acting better than that. But of course, some of the bullied become bullies. It's an inalterable part of human nature. And look, guys, it's evil Santa Claus. Let's have an example. In one of those odd Marvel behind-the-scenes specials on Disney Channel, we saw a longtime comic scribe Dan Slott absolutely humiliated on camera by his editor whose name I believe is Anonymous Nobody. I'm not willing to rewatch the thing in order to get the fella's name. And of course, Dan Slott is notorious for how bad he treats his readers, because those who are trained to be bullies don't abuse the ones who bullied, or bully, since it seems to be still ongoing. They bully the next ones down the line. And I guess I would absolutely 100% think that Dan Slott believes that all the readers are below him. And I've seen more than a couple of comic book creators take this. But look, I've said it before and I'll say it again. If it's not for the readers, if it's not for the customers, then all you're doing, it's a hobby. Period. So don't give me this, oh, comic book creator. Don't even give me the whole what I was told before. Oh, it's a symbiotic. You need that. No. You know what happens if there's no comic book creators? We'll find something else. So no, this isn't a symbiotic thing. You guys need the comic book creators need the readers more than the readers need the comic book creators. Okay, so let me move on here. That's my theory. It doesn't encompass everyone because not everyone becomes a bully, no matter how badly they were treated and continue to be. Most have more character than that, but some do, and in an environment of stunted children ruling by fiat and tantrum, it's little wonder sometimes that continue to be stunted children and lash out by fiat and tantrum. But why does it seem so much more prominent now? I can think of two reasons. First, those who can leave the screaming halls of grown child terrors are now have ways to do so without sacrificing their careers to do it. Think of Substack, crowdfunding, and more healthy pantheon of independent publishing houses. There are actually those scrappy young contender outfits out there who try treating freelancers as well as an inducement to leaving the big two to come over to their shop. That leaves the big two houses more firmly composed of these stunted tantrum monsters without the leavening influence of the still sane, modestly mature. Okay. And the second reason is social media. In the past, child terrors among the writers and artists in comics could only take it out on their ire on readers in small doses at conventions and store signings. Now, one can reach thousands at a time, day in, day out. And one thing bullies always do is bully wherever and whenever they can. But the same social media is also the mechanism that allows those now the set upon readers, critics, and until now they were innocent bystanders to fight back. And that drives the bullies ape over the top even more into uncontrollable rage land. The rot is deep. This has been the culture in comics for decades, so it won't end soon. Remember, even after the rot had long set, it still took Rome 500 years to fall. This will be with us for some time to come. Of course, that's assuming my theory and observations are correct, and I could be way off the mark. Mike Byrne wrote, you ain't wrong. And Dan Shaheen says, the one I hear about the most that surprised me is John Byrne. Yeah, me too. Back in the 80s, he was notorious. But now that I think about it, he was probably by so many dim-witted editors early on that he developed an intense antipathy towards his own fans. Sad because his work is loved so much by anyone who has met him that has had a bad story to tell. And then finally, John Krenich says, so at the height of Fables, you might have almost, but did not qualify as a 300-pound gorilla. What does it take? Yeah, that is a good question. That was a great book, by the way. I do highly recommend it. I hope that even shared. But anyway, there you go, gang. Yeah, I guess I could see that. I mean, people, but you got to be a certain kind of person anyway. It's like he says, not everyone ends up being a bully. So obviously, it's a certain kind of person. Is it a good person? Is it a bad person? I think if you know, especially like somebody like Bill Willingham, if he can point out, oh my gosh, they did this to me, therefore I shall do. If you're doing that, you're a crap human being. As far as Dan Slott's concerned, I'm convinced of it. The man called me out by name, called me a racist, never met me, never talked to me once, then mentioned a whole bunch of articles that never talked to anyone once to get their information. This is what happens. You have you have somebody like myself, Jimmy Quirks, they say something. And then all of a sudden the people we're arguing for goes, oh, they're an ist, they're a phobic or whatever. And they say, oh, they hate women, they hate black people, they hate whatever. And then they repeat it. Oh, they hate black people. Oh, no, they said they hate black. And it becomes something, in their minds, it becomes something that we've said, that we've acted on, that we've done, but that never happened. They have repeated the lie so many times that they swear they've heard, they swear they've seen, and that's not the case. So no, I don't think that, I don't think you should give a pass to any of this. I think you're a bad person if you've been bullied and you bully others, because you know how it feels. It might be hard not to do because you're almost instinctually in belief that that's how the way it should be done. But sorry, man, I can't get behind that. I can't get behind that. But anyway, that's my opinion. What is yours? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to click like, share, subscribe, ring that notification bell if you haven't done it already. If you don't mind helping out the channel, there's a Ko-Fi link in the description below. Just drop $1 in the till, help the channel out, and also comment, even if it's just to say hi. But I really want to know your thoughts on this, so please leave that. I'd like to thank everybody, all the true believers, very much for watching.